Welcome to the Old Souls and Seekers podcast, brought to you by Satori Prime. Satori Prime lives at the intersection of nervous system regulation, somatic healing, and genuine transformation. And not the kind of transformation that looks good on a vision board, the kind that actually changes how you feel in your body every single day. So if you're someone who spent years searching through books, teachers, experiences, and every modality you can find for something that finally makes the whole thing make sense, you've come to the right place, because you know that the real work is not just about acquiring more information. It's about coming home to something you've always known but could never quite reach. In every episode, we go deep into the science, into the spiritual, into the lived experience of what it actually takes to become who you came here to be. No performance, no pretense, just the conversations that actually move the needle. So let's dive in. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Excited to have you here. This is now our second live recording in front of a live audience. So yeah, excited to have you guys here with us. And like I said, if you guys have any interesting things that you would want to talk about, or any questions that you guys might have, feel free. You guys can drop them in the comment box. And if we find it to be fitting within the conversation today, then we'll happily do that. I had a interesting experience that I'm happy to throw in there, bro, if we want to just
Rock and roll.
So I was just talking to a friend, and I don't want to go into the details, but here's basically the gist of kind of what's been happening. And I think for a lot of people listening, this probably will hit close to home. I know, especially the people that I see here on camera with us, I know this will hit close to home. He has mastered the world of understanding, right? He's just like, he's the kind of person that when he will talk to a coach or somebody, is trying to support him, he can like talk circles around them.
Yeah, he coaches the coach.
He coaches the coach. Yeah. And not because he's trying to be an asshole, just because he's done so much of that work. And then someone's trying to point to him. He's like, yeah, but this. He's like super, super smart. And I know many of our listeners find themselves in that place. And he was just sharing different things that were happening in his life. And it's like all the pointers, both verbally and experientially, have been like, it's time to go within. 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 And one of the distinctions that I think is missed when people say go within, when people say like, the only way out is through, or go within, I think what most people assume is that they need to go deeper into the thinking, deeper into the program, deeper, like more through that stuff. And so they're like, I'm doing it. I'm going through, I'm going in. And no one told us that the going inward journey has nothing to do with going into words or ideas or protocol, but like actually going into the felt sense, like feeling sensations, not emotion, not the like giving it a name of like I'm sad, I'm this and that, but like the actual sensation that's in the body. And everyone around him has been like this, but because he's so super smart, it just, and I know, I was like, dude, I did the same exact thing for a decade and a half.
And you're not even super smart.
Yeah, and I'm not even super smart.
Yeah. Just handsome. What I was really concerned when you first said that he mastered something, I thought you were going to say he really mastered porn, and then I was like, this is going to get weird. But you took it in a very different direction than I expected.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank
So
God.
what do you say to a man like that? Like how do you get him over the finish line and get
Yeah.
something shifting?
How do you get him over the finish line? That's the transition
That
that
was
we're going with.
that was just for the smart people. That was so kudos to you for picking up on that.
You said it so deadpan. I was like, really? You just didn't realize? But you did.
I like subtlety. I like subtle comedy.
So here's this is kind of what I want to bring through. I think there's two ways that one can go about this. The first way is by choice. The second way is by life is going to make you go through that choice. And
Sure.
he is in camp B at this point. And it's kind of what we were talking about. I don't know if it was on the last podcast or just in general in our community, but like how there's this pressurization that's happening now, and it's really pushing on whatever is your kind of like weak area, right? It's like the dam is building the pressure, and wherever there's that little hole, that's where like the thing is just shooting out of. And so, in his world, it's relationships, and it's like it doesn't matter what he tries, every tool and every experience and everything he's doing, it's like it's just not working, just not working, just not working, just not working. And so he's being brought to his knees to have to go inside and have to learn to sit with the stuff that he's just been avoiding. The sadness, the abandonment, the betrayal, like all that stuff. So, you know, for him, it's more out of necessity at
Sure.
this point, just because life has pushed him there. And I actually believe that we can play a participating role in it. Now he's kind of like he just has to. Uh, and I just find that a lot of
Don't you
people.
think that most people come to it because they have to, not because they want?
Um,
I'm trying to think of an example where people come to it on their own. Like
no,
it
I
isn't
think people come to it
always.
on their own.
I'm trying to think of one person I knew that just decided up one day that they should just grow.
Oh no, no, I don't mean grow. I mean look within from body, not just do
I
the
see.
mindset work.
I see.
And I look, I mean, I think we chose this path not necessarily out of a necessity. It was a frustration where
No,
we kind of
initially it was necessity.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
at 19 years old, it was necessary for me to not kill myself.
No, but that was mindset work. What I'm
I
saying is
understand. Yeah.
the transition from doing the just sticking to the mindset
Sure.
work to going into the body. Yeah, I think growth for everyone pretty much comes out of necessity,
Sure.
but everyone kind of like starts with the mindset stuff because that's kind of, someone's going to hand you a book
Sure.
or
Exactly.
this or that. Um, but
I don't know that you could skip that part, honestly. I don't think there's a shortcut to the body. I think like everything else, you go to school, you got to learn the alphabet before you read the books and this and that.
absolutely.
It's like it's just part of the course. Like I don't really see that to detriment. Like
No, no, no.
I
What I'm saying
yeah.
is, I think people choose to stay on that path forever as it's like the end all be all.
Yeah,
And we
because
were
we
we
live
were kind of there too.
we live in a world that's intellectualized. We live in
Yep,
an informational dense world, and so it seems like all right, well, I just got to find the right information to solve the problem, to do
exactly.
the thing, and blah blah blah. And it's funny because anytime I see people who I know who've like mastered marketing or something like that, they complain how clients come to them for strategy or how to set up the account or how to this or that, right? And it's like, and they're like, it's not about any of those things.
Yeah.
It's like never about those things. So it's just we. I don't think a lot of people. Well, that let me back up on that. Most people, I think it's challenging. Like, here's the thing: we didn't go to school to learn how to think, right? We went to school to learn how to memorize. Like, if I think about like, okay, what would my ideal educational experience have been? I probably would have spent the first 4 to 6 years of my educational experience not on learning stuff, on learning how to learn,
Yeah.
like how to learn, like the fundamentals of learning. How does one educate themselves in a way that fundamentally changes the way that they approach everything in life? And I walked out of school with zero knowledge about how to learn. I just did
I
whatever.
didn't get that that's what school was till I was in college.
Uh-huh.
like in college, I was like, oh, what I need to learn, because every year was just a little bit different. And every year I was like, oh, what I'm learning is actually like for me, what works on how to learn.
Right.
And I remember having that actual thought. I was like, oh, I'm not really learning anything, but I'm learning how to actually learn something.
I see. And how did that then you felt like that college performed that function for you?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that was the first time in my life where, because in high school, I just kind of went through the motions in a way.
Yeah.
Um, but there was no clear, I was like, I just need to survive this class, or I just need to do the best that I can.
Sure.
There wasn't this thing like, oh, I'm actually teaching myself how to do this practice. But in college, I think it got so much harder so fast. And I was like, I need to learn how I learn.
Right.
And that first semester, I sucked at it. I was like, wow, I can't do the same shit I did in high school here. It just doesn't work. And so I really had to come up with like processes for myself
I see. And
on
what was
how to
that?
learn. And I
Was that
remember,
process take Adderall before the final?
well, no, that was a ixnay. I tried that one, and that was a quick like, do not do this because Adderall and Elon's body apparently do not like each other.
Right.
That was tough. But yes, Ritalin, I think
But Ritalin.
Ritalin worked.
Adderall didn't work, but Ritalin worked.
Ritalin, I remember like the first time I took Ritalin for like studying for midterms or finals, whatever, and like everyone was taking them. And I
Elon,
went
if
up to all
Elon,
my
if everyone
friends.
jumped off a bridge, would you jump off the bridge?
No, but I
Jesus
remember I
Christ.
went to all my friends who took it. I was like, you motherfuckers have been cheating through school this whole time.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there like reading chapters and chapters of economics. I'm like, this is the most interesting thing I've ever read in my life.
I
It
want
is
to
like
point I want to point
fascinating.
out I want to point out that you didn't tell me this story about Ritalin until after I graduated college. So you let me go through my 4 years after you found the hack and
There's
you
no way.
and you didn't
There's
tell
just
me
no
about it.
way. There's no way. I must
I
have
just
told you and
survived
you just
school.
forgot.
Yeah. I just survived. Anyway, back to the point here about learning to learn. I think the most fundamental thing you can learn is about like people want to say who you are, what you're about. That stuff is really challenging to name.
Yeah,
Like, what are you
especially
doing here? And it's like
when
that.
you're young.
Yeah, like forget it. Like the philosophy of that will just make your mind melt and explode. But at the
Yeah,
end of the day, it's like again, like you're always being who you are,
yeah,
right? But the parts of you that are watching you be who you are can't accept who you are. And so that builds up all this resistance, which makes everything in life harder, including
yeah.
school and education and building relationships and stuff like that. And like what a world it would be, like if you have like meditation in school at a young age, or like, just put kids in situations, right, where awareness is at the center and paramount of life. Forget it. I mean, like after that, it feels like everything. Because like then if you're not doing well in school grade wise, you're not like whipping yourself.
Correct.
Like you're just like, this is not my journey, this is not my
Correct.
path, and I'll go find another one.
Correct.
And like masochism is just such a way when you don't know who you are because you think, oh shit, I must not be good at anything in life. And it's like,
No,
no,
it just you equate being bad at school to like I'm stupid, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm whatever it is. Where it's like that's just not your path.
yeah,
Um, I was going to say that I think actually for us, you and I think entrepreneurship was a path to again like learn to learn in a completely different way. I mean,
sure,
we had to because I think in entrepreneurship, what you get is that you're the end all be all. And so like everything is a function of you. There's no one to blame. There's no one to like, say like, oh, it's because they messed this up. It's like, no, it's you. And then you realize it's not just about your technical skills quickly. You're like, oh, my mindset and my emotional state have everything to do with the level of success that I can produce. And so I think it's a unbelievable opportunity to learn through that. And like Montessori schools, if you think about it, they teach through, and even the kids at the school that you guys put your kids in, like they teach a lot through experience and
yeah,
projects
yeah,
and working together, where most schooling is like, think about this community, like everything we're talking about is like together. together, 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 where everybody else is like, go read this book on your own, go watch this video on your own, go do this thing on your own. It's like, there's the message.
Yeah. Waldorf is wonderfully spiritually aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just at a birthday party over the weekend, and the parents talk about this a lot, how enjoyable it is to hang out with the other parents who are, aligned around this, and like the school and those programs just bring those kind of people together. Like I would have never thought I would want to hang out with the parents from my child's class. Like, made a
Yeah.
lot of making a lot of good friends that way.
Well, you
There,
choose that school from a very specific
you don't come to that
place.
yeah, you generally don't look for that kind of stuff unless you're doing this kind of work. I mean, first time I talked to a Waldorf teacher, I was like, so what do you do with the kids? She goes, I help. This was when we had Jill and Jaden was like 3. First thing she said to us, she goes, I help children's soul and body safely in their bodies. I was like, I'm sorry, come again? Like that was
Yeah.
the response. That was a response I got from the teacher who was then doing ayahuasca on the weekend. And I was like, this is fucking great. Like whoever's teaching my son, like that, but that's what I want. I want the people who've challenged themselves spiritually. I want those people in politics. I want those people in positions of power. I want those people in
Yeah.
positions of teaching. Like that's the influence that I'd like to see in our world. And I imagine eventually, like, just like your friend who has hit the wall psychologically so often, like I imagine society is kind of doing that holistically right now, where we're all just like
Look
banging
around.
the wall and going like, there's got to be a better way. And as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and I imagine that's why the aliens are coming.
The
Yeah.
other thing that became very clear in the conversation, and you and I run this pattern, or had run this pattern for exclusively for many years, is the notion of I have to do it on my own. And when I offered him to get support, like we were talking about waves and how like there's certain waves that you'll be able to process on your own, and then there's waves that just come that are like too big, and you just need another system there to like be able to ride the wave with you. And the natural response of systems like ours is like, yeah, I can navigate I can navigate these waves on my own, right? Because it's like you're just so trained not to. And I was like, dude, the breakthrough is actually in asking for support.
Yeah.
It's not about whether they can or can't give it to you. It's like the act of being like, will you sit with me?
Yeah. I'm a vulnerable
That's the
being. I'm a
breakthrough.
vulnerable being who needs
Yeah.
support. Yeah, we
Yeah.
were just talking
That's the
about
breakthrough.
this. We are talking about this in level 1 right now,
Were
and
you?
in a lot of detail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So it sounds like you're sitting with him a little bit.
Yeah, it was really it's really amazing. And I'm sure you have this experience too, and probably some of you guys here listening as well. It's like the more you cultivate this inside of you, people around you, have you guys noticed that people around you start to feel a lot safer? And then they start sharing things with you, and they'll say things to you, or they're like, wow, I've never shared this with anybody. Right? You guys probably hear that, or they'll like sit with you and they just start crying. They're like, I don't know why I'm crying. I'm like, my line now is like, yeah, I have that effect on people. Like, and it's, I know, because it's their nervous system just lands in a spot that just feels held for the first time. And he was like, how do you do this? How are you able to track other people? And how has this come up? And I was like, honestly, I think it's a thing that every one of us has. I've been given this opportunity. Like, people have offered me this for so like over a decade now. And it just starts to stream out of you like once you give it to yourself first.
Yeah. You should
Um,
you should have told him it's because I'm handsome and under 10% body fat. That's the only way to get there. Just to mess with it. And be like, well, you got to go on a diet now
we're gonna
until we see some abs. There's
we're
nothing,
gonna
nothing's
we're gonna
happening, buddy.
create we're gonna create spiritual six-pack
That's
abs.
right. 5 minute abs.
Yeah,
Can I shift the conversation a little bit?
yeah, please.
Over the weekend, I watched this movie. What was the one I told you guys about?
Big, bold, beautiful journey or something like that.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen that movie, I highly recommend it. It's uh Margot, right? Margot Robbie.
Margot Robbie.
Yeah. Who's drop dead gorgeous, but also like probably the best actress in Hollywood right now. Just
Hmm.
every movie she does, just I'm like, damn, this girl can act. And Colin Farrell. who's also come into his own in later stages of life. And this movie is really, and if they're on the Epstein list and I don't know it, I'm sorry ahead of time. Like I don't keep track. Okay. Like every time I name it somebody that on an Epstein list, everyone gives you shit. I'm like, I don't fucking know who's on this list.
I
Right.
don't
Like
follow.
I don't follow it. Epstein, whatever. Um, so it's a really artsy movie. It feels like a play, like a really good play, and it's very interesting plot line. Won't ruin it for anybody, but as I was watching the movie, they were having this really interesting conversation, and I started bawling my eyes out. And
Oh,
um, it kind of makes me want to cry right now. I don't even remember what he said, but like the last 7 or 8 years has been really challenging for me in a very different way than the time before that was. And I got through a lot of cycles. And like, just like I'm proud of our clients and students when they tell me like, oh my God, I'm dealing with this in such a different way. I'm proud of myself too, because every time it comes around again, like this thing 3, 4 years ago was terrifying me. Like I would literally shake in the morning. And today it's kind of still happening. And I'm like, it's like barely registers in my system, which is mind blowing. And so part of me knows as those cycles clean up, there is almost no doubt in my mind that like the reality changes on that safety because I'm not creating all these waves. We were talking about entropy in L1 and entropy. For those that don't know, it's like everything just becomes like more disorderly, like naturally. Um, Kind of like if a meteor hits a meteor and like we have all those satellites in space, and if they make contact, like they all start hitting each other, you just get more and more disorderly. So it's like he said something, and I realized when I was in the jungle of Colombia in 2017, I had a journal with me, and I never write when I'm on medicine, but I wrote that entire day, which I would fill up these whole pages and pages of stuff that was being channeled through my system. And I was writing about, I suddenly got this feeling, and that feeling was my wife. It was like my wife was coming.
this is
And
before. This is
this is
before you
before
had met Mandy.
she was
Or
like she was like loosely in my life at the time, but I had zero recognition of her or anything like that. And I was dealing with a great deal of heartbreak at that time from another relationship that came out, so I was not thinking about that at all. And then I was like in this jungle, and it's like this feeling, and I'm like, "What's this feeling?" And it's like your wife, and I'm like, "When is she coming?" And it says before your birthday, and I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, I'm dealing with all this heartbreak. So, and then sure enough, like had met my wife before my birthday, and like within less than a year of that, we were already pregnant with Jaden. Um, and something I wrote, and this is why I started crying. And again, like I'm not even clear now why it's making me so emotional. But what I wrote was that I was clear that I had come as far as I could spiritually on my own. And that I was clear that when I met my wife, whoever she was, that there was going to be an unlock for me and her, that we were going to be able to go into depths of spirituality and growth that I was simply not possible apart, that we were going to do together.
quick pause before we keep going. If what we're talking about in this episode is landing for you, if you're feeling that pull towards something deeper, something that goes beyond just information and actually moves things into your body, I want to tell you about a live training the guy and I do almost every week. It's called Rich and Regulated Workshop, and it's the place where everything we teach on this show becomes something you actually experience rather than just understand. In one live session, we walk you through the core nervous system framework that has changed thousands of lives, not as a lecture, but as a direct embodied experience. You leave with your nervous system actually shifted, not just your thinking about your nervous system. So if you're ready to stop collecting insights and start actually integrating them, come join us live. Simply go to satoriprime.com/workshop. Again, that's satoriprime.com/workshop. We look forward to seeing you there live. Now let's get back to it.
Now, I had never once even considered, because I hadn't really thought much about that the last 7 or 8 years literally started right after I met my wife.
Yeah.
It was like right after that. And that this cycle has been going on for the entire time. And it's been quite destabilizing for this entire period of time. and I had this thought while I was watching the movie that I literally could not have, like, I cannot go through that on my own. Like if Mandy wasn't here while I was going through that, I would have lost my shit in my mind a long time ago. Like she helps me stabilize a lot when that stuff is when it's hit my system in really hard ways, and it was like this full circle moment of like the realization coming true, but like I just never considered up until that specific moment that what we were in was the very thing that I wrote about back then.
Yeah. Mm.
And so like revealed that to me, and she was sitting right next to me. So I'm just like bawling through this movie. She's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, I'll tell you, I'll tell you
I'll tell you later.
after," you know, and then like telling her, and it was like it was really beautiful, that whole thing. But it was really interesting. And I'm like, how did I never put two and two together before on that one? So it was like, kind of serendipity
Hmm.
came into my life, and Destiny, and also made me realize, like, of course you find you like, I feel like I'm kind of at the end of that cycle to some degree, but now I'm like, of course you realize it right at the end. It would have been really fun to realize this like 8 years ago, like actually have some clarity here, but you get clarity when you're not freaking out. So
When the student is ready.
yeah, it's really hard to get clarity mentally or see what's going on when the system is in a panic state. It just is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more on that front. I think for both of our systems, because we were such loners, trained to be and figure everything out on our own. Um, it took the women in our lives to come in and just like create a pillar of stability that you and I had never learned to fully lean on and trust and like melt into. And I've had several moments that I distinctly remember where I just lost everything. And like she was just so there and so present to
Mhm.
just let me know like we're in it together and it's gonna be okay and we're gonna get through it together, like whatever that is. And it's all the other stuff is irrelevant. It's just like our relationship and this connection is what matters. Um, yeah, I remember those moments pretty distinctly.
I want to switch again, unless you have more
No,
to
no,
say on
go,
that.
go.
So there's a question here,
Yeah,
uh, and I think it's valuable to explore.
please.
So I won't say the name, but it says, when I am struggling and try to sit with my feelings and go within, I will drop the narrative, story, or thoughts surrounding the feelings and just go within. The problem is that once I drop the story, the feelings in my body just dissipate. Not always, but very often. I go within without the narrative and I just find peace. Has this happened to you? If so, how would you recommend proceeding?
Mm,
I think that's a really valuable question. And what I would ask, is like, where are you sitting and viewing from or being with? That can be a confusing question actually, but like, it's like, where are you actually locating your awareness when you're viewing? So here's, and this might feel more advanced, especially if you're new to our podcast and stuff like that. But like, one of the preeminent things that we all want to learn how to do is actually unhook our awareness from behind, like the position from behind our eyes. Okay. So awareness is kind of like this thing that orients itself where it's accustomed to orienting itself. And so for most people, and this is kind of like our 101 teaching, if you're listening to the podcast today, it's like you're going to find that your awareness kind of feels like it's sitting behind your eyes. Okay. And it's really just resting there or orienting over there. And so when we do that, we access a certain part of our mind. And then depending on how you
mm,
orient your awareness, different chakra systems, different places, you can actually enable like different experiences, different qualities of mind, so to speak. And so there's lots of different qualities of mind. And this is what the ancient arts kind of point to, is these different qualities that the mind has. So oftentimes when we meditate, we unhook and we bring our awareness like around the body, okay, which feels fantastic. Okay.
mm.
Really beautiful. It's like the emptiness. So if you study like some forms of Buddhism, like all they focus on is this emptiness, become the empty vessel. And that's really valuable in some respects. And again, like people spend a lifetime working on that. What I have found, and again, this is an opinion, not necessarily fact. What I have found is it's a really good place to go to escape.
Yeah.
Okay. So when there's like challenging feelings, challenging experiences, it's like you kind of you zen out, right? And then you kind of like disappear into the void. And I think that's what you're pointing at is there's this kind of dissipation of everything. And so that can feel really good. But if you kind of like check, are you being with that experience or are you kind of using meditation as an avoidance tool? And I know I have used meditation as an avoidance tool in my life. So that would be a place to look. And again, I'm not saying it's one or the other. Just you have to be honest with yourself and say, hey, am I sitting here to be with this? So another way to approach it would be you can find the spaciousness, that's fine. But maybe this time, instead of going out and away from the body, you actually bring the spaciousness into the body because both are really, really useful and go deep into holding and witnessing that experience within you. And perhaps that's why sometimes it feels like it's dissipating before you hit the sensation. But here's the reality, like even if there's like a 0.1% left of that sensation after you drop the story, even if you can just sit with that, it's just as valuable as if you were in full tilt experience. It's not like sitting with subtle energy versus sitting with like big energy is like more important. Sometimes it feels like when big energy is moving, like it's more therapeutic, at least in my experience. But it's like, even in this moment right now, like I would call myself reasonably stable right now. I'll tell you like what's going on for me and then Ilan can punch in over here too. Like, so I'm not feeling my best physically. I may be dealing with some of what my wife has. I've had been she's been kind of bedridden for 5 days more or less. I have been dealing with on and off vertigo for 12 years. So when I get like physically anything, like I start getting dizzy. So I'm not like so I have some symptoms of vertigo the last few days. But like overall in my energetic body, I'm feeling pretty stable, while some things are on the periphery that are like upsetting right now. And so like internally, I have a slight contraction in my solar plexus. I have this tight spot on the back of my head and something going on over here on my forehead that seems to be connected. So all this kind of stuff. So I name all this because like even as we're speaking here, my awareness is around my body and in my body. And I'm paying attention to all these subtle things that are happening in my body, even as I answer this question. So there's all these
Mm.
like levels of mind that are here. And so like when you start doing the work, you show up for yourself at a specific time. You're like, I show up when I meditate. I show up when I mini, right? I do these kind of things. And again, this is a constantly growing facility for myself. It's like I like show up for myself from the moment my eyes are open to the moment that my eyes are closed. There's always something online being with my experience now. Then that's not how I used to be a few years ago. And there's times where I still go back into mind, but like there's this like unbelievable awareness now of subtlety in the body. And so it feels like that part of me that used to always abandon my system is now just like always being with my system. So I don't concern myself so much with the healing art anymore, or that I need to heal, or that there's this. And like again, there's times where I more intensely focus meditation. There's time when I'm with my teacher. Like, right, these are times for like great focus on that. But overall, in the periphery, it's like that awareness is always there. And so there's always something moving. And I'm aware of that movement. So if the narrative is not here today, fine, the narrative is not here today. If it's feeling like this today, if it's only subtle today, it's subtle today. If it's big energy tomorrow, it's big energy tomorrow. I just kind of roll with whatever my system is putting forward. Of
Can I add a few things?
course, yeah.
Yeah. So my experience is actually very similar to whoever asked that question. So in the beginning, and this took me a while to figure out, our bodies are incredibly intuitive and we have a lot of different protection mechanisms. So even people that we sit with early on, there's like an unbelievable ability to either fly out of the body, to numb, to certain things. And so when we say like, hey, I want to feel something, and then we go and touch that thing. Sometimes to the mind, touching it is like touching an electrified fence or a really hot stove. And it's like we touch it, and then there's this instant pull away. And I know when I sat with our coach, who's now been our coach for a decade, like I would touch these things, and then he would point to the fact, he's like, did you notice that you touched it? And then you just like zapped out somewhere. And I was like, no, I didn't notice. Right. So it was like getting that reflection over and over and over. So, anyway, the practice that I want to share that really helped me was this. There's two and a half ways that I think are really, really important. The first is I'm going to talk about the self to self practices, and then I'll talk to self to other practices. So, the self to self practices, what I would do is I would first find a place, and I would just get into like a meditative state, and I would just sit, and I would make sure before I brought any content in that I would actually be in a grounded, safe, and resourced place. So for example,
Hot tip.
like, yeah, if Guy is under resourced because he's sick, or Mandy, for example, that is not a good time to be doing and working through this stuff. Like,
Agreed.
it's just not. Your body doesn't have enough energy. So it's really important to know, like, don't do this stuff when you're under resourced. That means you're tired, you're sick, uh, hungover, whatever it is, like not a good time.
Even spinning out, like while you're spinning out, is not a great time to try to move stuff through the body. Got to find stability and resource first. Otherwise, you can actually spin more. And I
Yeah.
find that people do that sometimes. They touch those parts and they go flying off. And I'm like, yeah, you weren't resourced.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So then the other thing that I do is, so once I get into that state, then what I do is like I will bring that content. So you're talking about like once I let go of the story, the whole thing disappears. So it's like it's okay to bring the story back. And I don't mean like story in a cognitive way. I mean, for me, it's like the visual track, right? So say it was an interaction with my kids or my wife or somebody. And that was the thing where I felt the reactivity or the charge. So once I'm in a place where I found ground, I found stability, I feel safe, now I will literally bring that interaction or that circumstance or whatever into my mind's eye. But I'm doing it. So awareness is now in my body. It's scanning my center channel. And as I bring this thing into my mind's eye, what I'm watching for is where in my system the contraction begins. And because when guys talking about spinning out, like if there's a level of, 0, meaning like nothing's in your system, 10 would be like spinning out, right? It's just like just hijacked, gone. Most people in the beginning are so much in the reactivity, and like mindset work typically works when you're at like 8, 9, 10. You're already kind of like hijacked, and now you're just going, okay, I had this thought. If I just change this thought in this story, blah, blah, blah. But that's like on this end of the spectrum. The awareness practice is getting very related to what is happening at 1, 2, and 3. Like, what's the initial tension or bubble or contraction that's happening, and where is it happening in the body? And so I bring that into my mind's eye, and I'm just watching to see if I can perceive the nuance subtlety of where the contraction in the body begins. And as that happens, I'm just now being with that system, with that contraction. Now, you might do that, and then your system again might go into this process of trying to temper it down, trying to push it away, trying to exit the body. But again, if you're doing it with awareness, you can actually become aware of the defense strategy that you're using to also check out of this thing. Because the more you can map what's happening inside, that's the teaching. That when we started this whole thing, like going within, that's going within. That's mapping how your system is working in this environment. And so you might have to bring the event into your mind's eye multiple times through that practice. You might like bring it in, feel something, then all the defenses come, and then you're like into the nothingness. and then just check, like, would it be okay for my system if I brought it in again? And you bring it in again. Now you see again, like, okay, what's arising now? Because as I would do this, eventually you get to this place where you've kind of like worked through all of these nuanced little subtle motions that are happening, where then you bring it in and there really might be nothing. But my pointer is like keep bringing it in and just notice if it's still there, like notice what's there. So that's the one, that's the self to self practice. The other thing is sometimes the thing that we want to bring in and the thing that we want to work through is so intense for our system that on our own you are just physically not going to be able to feel it on your own. Meaning, like, you cannot cultivate at this moment in time enough resource and enough safety and enough ground to even let your system feel safe enough to bring it in. But you'll know that as you're doing this, if like you keep noticing you bring it in and then your system does this like protection thing, then that clues you into, you know what? I get to sit with somebody. And what I recommend is this. And this, so I said 2.5. There's like the minis, which are, you can get into a mini and you can ask someone like, and this is what I do, right? I have many partners that I've been sitting with for years. So if I'm like feeling that I'm going through something, as we enter the mini, I'll say, hey, I'm working with this part. Will you sit and hold this with me? And what I find is when we get into connection, even in a mini, it can allow for more, it gives us more access because now there's another system here supporting, right? I want to speak to something for a second. There's a version of you that has been in the personal development space for a long time. You've read the books, you've done the programs, had the insights, and that still feels like something fundamental has not shifted yet. If that's you, I'm not going to tell you that one more piece of content is going to be the thing that changes it. What I will tell you is that the missing piece is almost never more information. It's an experience, a direct, live, embodied experience of your nervous system actually moving into a different state with a framework to understand what just happened and how to keep it happening. That's what our live workshop delivers. Your nervous system comes in one way and leaves another. Thousands of people describe it as the thing that finally made everything else click and fall into place. Not because we teach them something, because they feel something in their body they have never felt before. So come experience it for yourself. satoriprime.com/workshop. We're live almost every week, and we'd love to have you there with us the next time. Again, satoriprime.com/workshop. Now back to the show. The other one, and this was like the biggest game changer for me, is actually sitting with a practitioner. So like I said, we've been working with the same coach for 10 years. That's where I would bring this stuff. I would say, hey, listen, Andrew, like this is what I've been working through. This is what's been happening, blah, blah, blah. Like, will you help me move through and process this? Because when you sit with someone like Guy and I, or one of our coaches in our community, because we can track your system, you're going to get the pointers from us that say, hey, did you notice this protector come in? Did you notice this numb? Did you notice this filter? Did you notice your energy shoot out of your body? Because we're tracking all of that. And you might not have the pointers yet to find that within yourself at this point in time. But once you do that a few times, like you're going to start to sense it on your own. But that's why I say, like, with a one-on-one practitioner who's done this work for a long time, this is where you get that's like the training wheels where you really get these different pointers. And then you can sit more efficiently on your own or in minis and stuff like that. So to me, it's this three-pronged approach. It's do the self-to-self stuff, get into minis so you can feel like the connection and the resource, and get a one-on-one session so you can actually like work through some of these more stuck things that keep showing up. So that's what I would offer on that.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's
Yeah,
a really
I
good
hope
tip.
that helps.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that through. That's I would agree. Hot tip on the resource and stability. And minis are certainly an avenue for that. And it
Yeah.
took me years to realize like the our teacher, our teacher didn't like he didn't explain the way that we explained to you guys, like why something happens. Like what's the function of that? Like we were just doing it for years. I always like to tell this story. Like there's this therapy that's not well known because it came out of a guy that his name is Peter Cummings, and he's older and retiring, but he invented this safe attachment therapy called stick work, which unfortunately not many people know. But our teacher has been working with Peter for a very long time, and so he's a practitioner of this thing called stick work. And stick work in its most well, let me tell you the story first, and then I'll tell you what it is. So like I would go into my teacher's office. His name is Andrew. I go into his office. Now my wife is one of Andrew's first clients ever. Like that's how I met Andrew in the first place. And and a bunch of our friends had seen him over the years, and they're like, "Have you done stick work with him?" And I'm like, "No." And I was going to see him every week, literally every week, 2 hour, 3 hour session every week. And behind his head, we say it's like it looks like the scene in the Matrix where like Morpheus is sitting there with like Neo the first time. There's like those big chairs like that. That's how every session is. These big chairs. We sit face to face, and he gives me the blue pill every time. Uh, and behind his head is like a bamboo stick. So every time I'm in there, I see the damn stick, but the stick's never coming out. Now I've had lots and lots of sessions. Everyone keeps asking me, "Have you done stick work? Have you done stick work?" And I never once asked. I'm like, "Well, what is it?" Because I'm not like, I know like everyone gets really curious, but I like that curiosity over the years. I just like stopped asking so many questions. And like I'm with a teacher, there's flow there, there's alignment. I'm like, whatever. Like I can't even tell you how many exercises we did when we were like in our mystery healing school that I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck we're doing here.
Yeah.
Zero, zilch, nada, not even close to knowing what the function of this particular exercise is, but just do it. Like just trust that if this master is teaching you this freaking exercise, that at some point on their path, it was really an important thing to do. So just do it and let's see what happens, right? So again, no questions about the stick work. And I'm like, where does it go? I was really afraid he was gonna like sodomize me or something. I didn't know what was gonna happen with this stick, but so one day he finally like he's just like kind of like reaches behind like Donatello on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and like grabs the thing and he's like, hold it. And I'm like, with what? He's like, your hand. I'm like, and then what? He goes, that's it. So like the function of stick work is that it creates a bond between you and the practitioner, but you put some tension into it, and the practitioner on the other end meets that tension. I'm sure there's way more to it. I actually don't know how to facilitate stick work, and I'm sure there's a lot more subtlety to it than that. And Andrew is a wizard and a master in his own right. But like here's the reality. Like since we started, I would say like 80 to 85% of my sessions are just doing stick work. Like that's how much stick work I've done over the years. And it's again like one of the most proven beneficial safe attachment repair systems there is, probably because there's a physical bond to the point where I'm like, we need to invent a machine that people have on their end that they can just like hold on to it and somehow like through the internets, like when a practitioner is pulling on it,
Pulling.
you could feel it on your end, like
Yeah.
some kind of haptic feedback system, because it's like that, it's that good. The repair is that good. But the reason I name all that was to go back to the original thing that like the whole point of it is to give you that resource and stability so that you can meet that part,
Yeah.
so that you can sit with that part of you and like finally like meet it and let it move through your system and again to Elon's point, it's so important. It took me a really long time to realize how important that was. Yeah.
Yeah. I've only ever done it once at your old house with him,
Right.
where he brought it because most of my sessions are on Zoom with him. And I remember he put it in my hand and I had the same experience. I was like, so what are we doing? He's like, just hold it. And I was like, okay. And I remember holding it
Okay.
and I started crying. Like
Yeah.
within a matter of a couple of minutes, I started crying. And what became very present to me is that it brings up all of our stuff around attachment. So again, for me, my one of my core wounds is abandonment, right? So like no one's there. No one's ever there and no one's ever met me there. Now, I had done so much work with Andrew before ever doing the stick work. So like I knew how much Andrew was there for me, right? Like there's no doubt. And so as we were holding it in this way, the reason I started crying was because I was like, wow, I've never had someone in my life meet me like this ever. And it was just overwhelming to be met. How many of you guys like in minis, right? You like got to this place, or maybe with your one-on-one coach, you got to this place where like, I've never been met like this ever. And it's wild because you have people in your life that you're like, I'm really close to these people. But then I sit with a stranger, not a stranger, but like, someone, and I just feel so held and so seen and so witnessed that it melts you. It just like pierces that armor to a place where you're just like, wow. And so I'll never forget that moment. That was the only time I've ever done stick work. And so I remember I asked Andrew, I was like, you know, it's a shame that we don't get to do that. Because you were saying like 80% of the time you're like doing it with him. And he's like, Elon, we're doing that all the time. This the stick, like when we do this with the hands to like unhook from ordinary mind, the hands aren't moving awareness. You
Right.
guys
Right.
clear, right?
They're pointers.
So he's like the stick is the representation, but the attachment work is being done all the time, no matter what, because it's literally like a nervous system reaching and responding and reaching and responding and reaching and responding. And so I kind of let that all go. But yeah, that work, just so you guys know, like even if it's not with a stick, like the mini practices that you guys are doing in community, your group sessions that you do with us or the coaches, the one-on-one sessions that you do with the coaches, like attachment work is being done all the time because you're working on your nervous system attachment style.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's cool that we have different reference points because Elon's been working with him almost as long as I have. And again, all his work has been online with him for the most part. But yeah, I even when we sit with clients, I often imagine that. Like I
Yeah.
imagine like that, like my system is holding it, they're holding it, and I'm like tuning into where the tension is and meeting that tension and that kind of stuff. It's like I think there's some truth to that line. It's like we're mirrors for each other, right? I think
Absolutely.
what we offer in this work is like how to mirror, but from not mind or intellect or strategy, but like, how do you tune into the subtle energies that
Yeah.
are embodied with two bodies? And when you're tracking somebody else's subtle energy field, your capacity to like find and meet that part within them really changes. And again, because it's subtle, I think that's the part that most people need to step over initially. It's like nothing's coming to bop you on the head with
Yeah.
this giant breakthrough and tell you, it's finally happened. Like you did it. Good job. Congratulations. And so like kind of like I was saying with my teachers, like they gave me this offering and I'm like, all right, let's do it. And let's see what becomes of this because you've been practicing for 50 years. I should probably listen to you, right? Like imagine like Michael Jordan's like, here's how you shoot a foul shot. And you're like, why should I do that, Michael? You know, why should I step like that? Why should I throw the ball the way that you're saying? Like, can you imagine saying that to Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant if they took you to play basketball with them or like a tennis player or anybody? You're like, why would I do it that way, sir?
Yeah.
Please explain it to me. It's like, no, you're gonna, they're the best. They have something to teach you, right? So, and I think, and that's why for most people, I find it endearing today when people ask a lot of questions. And then I really enjoy when they stop asking all the questions
Yeah. Totally.
because I know that they've made it over that hump, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, good. Now you can actually be with yourself and not intellectualize yourself, which means you're actually finally with yourself, not the
Yeah.
idea of who you think you should be.
You're reminding me, I saw a video about a book that I read many, many, many years ago called The Inner Game of Tennis
Mm,
by this guy, Tim Galloway. And if no one's like, whether you're a tennis player or not, it's irrelevant. The book is a work of art on human development. I don't even, it's so anyway, this guy did like a 15-minute talk because he had worked with Tim and he was a tennis player, and he broke it down and he just said this line which I totally forgot. He asked, they were at the end of the interview, he was saying like the SD card was, running full, and they were like, you have like a minute left. And so he turns to Tim and he goes, if you had a minute to explain this work to someone, like what would you do? And you think like, how the fuck is someone going to explain it? And he just goes, P equals P minus I. Potential, no, performance equals potential minus interference.
Mm.
That was it. And he said he's like, you have every human has limitless potential within them. Every single human. We are all born with it. The only difference is how much interference is in the way of your living in that peak performance stage. So the more interference, meaning the more your head gets involved, the more the body clamps and braces, that is robbing you of peak performance. If you want peak performance, what you want to get really good at is finding what that interference is
Hmm.
and releasing that out of the way. And when I heard it, I was like, wow, we had always thought of the interference as the mind. It talks a lot. It tells you this. It tells you can't. It tells you not good enough. Da, 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 da. And we played that game. Now, the interference for me, when I heard that word, it just landed so differently than when I read that book because I'm so aware of the interference that is constantly happening in the body, and that the body is the one that's triggering the interference of mind. I used to just like try to process through here, but as he said it, I was like, wow, what we're working on now, when we talk about like alignment and flow, right? It's clearing out that center channel that is the conduit to our higher self, our access to flow and all these states. And it's like if that interference is there, you still have performance. It's just a less than your peak performance because of that static that's there. And I was just like, damn, that's it just kind of rejiggered it for me. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to talk a little bit more about that. So you reminded me of it today.
Yeah.
Um, because to me, that's all there is.
Yeah. I love that. Spirituality is definitely more an art of subtraction than an art of addition.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think in the mindset world, it is more about addition. It's like more information, more modality, more this, more that. And we're like now in this state, it's like I know that when I'm even in a session, the more Elon that is in the session, the less profound the session is. The less Elon is in the session, the more profound that session is for the client. And so, and that's true for everything. Like he just reminded me even today, it's like balance. He took this woman on a live TV channel, Tim Galloway, never played tennis in her life. And instead of being like, okay, you're going to hold the racket this way, this way, this way, this way, his whole thing was when the ball hits the ground, you're going to say bounce, either out loud or to yourself. And when you hit the ball, you're going to say hit. So bounce, hit. Because his whole thing is just give the mind something to focus on. So I went out today and I was literally just going, and I've played tennis for a long time, but I was just like doing bounce, hit, bounce, hit. And I was like, it was incredibly effective.
Wow.
You just give the mind something to kind of like focus on and do, and then the body just does what it wants to do.
That reminds me when we were doing training years ago, they would ask somebody in the audience that was afraid of catching a ball to come on
Yes.
stage. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And so they would take a tennis ball out and they would throw it. Sorry, usually it was a woman, not judging, but it usually was. And of course she would like, and the ball would come at her and she'd go, like she'd do one of these where it's
She's
like,
like hands up and freaking out.
like hands up in the face and like protecting herself, not even try to catch the ball. Just, and again, that's a conditioned response, right? So then the practitioner would tell her, look, forget about catching the ball. And he takes out another tennis ball. And this tennis ball, what they would do is they would take a Sharpie and where there's the white lines, they would draw in the black lines just so it was nice and visible. He said, look, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to spin it either forwards or left or right when I throw it. And all you have to do is just tell me which direction it's spinning in. So then he throws the ball, spins it like right like this, but throws it at her. You know what she does? Catches the ball. Every
Without
fuck,
even thinking about that,
every
he goes, "Did you
fucking
notice?"
time. She
He's like,
doesn't.
he's like, yeah,
Yeah, and
good.
then, so then she's like, so which way did the ball go? She goes, it went to the right. She's holding the ball in her hands. Do you get that? She's
Doesn't
not
even realize that she
she's not
caught it
even
yet.
aware that she caught the ball. And then he goes, and where is the ball? And she goes, oh my God, I caught it. And then he's like, yeah. And then she throws it back to him. And then he's like, all right, let's do it again. And he spins it to the left. She catches it again and catches it again and catches it again. Just like Elon said, something
Yeah,
different to focus on. Conditioning, it doesn't respond.
it was so funny. So yeah, it was this reminder. I don't know if you guys have like reread certain books um through time as you've gone like on this journey, and then you read the book and the same words that you read before that you took to mean this way now because you've had certain life experience and that you read it and you're like, whoa, that line is completely different to me now than what it was, whatever, 5, 10, 15 years ago. So that was kind of my experience with this. And I was like, damn, what a difference that eye makes. So in any event, I'll share more about that because it really hit home. And I was like, oh, really? That's what we're doing. We're here working on shedding the interference so you can live in absolute peak performance, whatever that looks like, right? Relationships, health, vitality, abundance, whatever it might be. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Cool.
And
Wrap it up here.
that's a wrap.
And that's a wrap. Great question, whoever that was. Thank you for that. That was a beautiful contribution.
Appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time.
That's going to do it for today's episode of Old Souls and Seekers, my friend. So if something landed for you in this conversation, don't let it stay in your head. The work we talk about on this show only becomes real when it moves into your body and into your life. So take one thing from today, one insight, one practice, one moment that felt different, and bring it into how you show up in the next 24 hours. And if this podcast has been meaningful to you, the single best thing you can do is share it with one person who needs to hear it. Not a mass post, just one person. The one who maybe came to mind while you were listening. That's how this work spreads, one nervous system at a time. By the way, we record these live in front of our community every single week, so you can join live and ask questions at satoriprime.com/podcast. And if you can't make it live, then make sure to subscribe wherever you listen. If this show has been a part of your journey, please leave us a review. It genuinely helps more people find their way home. And until next time, keep going inward. The answers you've been looking for have always been closer than you think. We'll see you on the next one.